The cold steel of the handcuffs snapped shut around Eli's wrists as the park's afternoon sun cast long shadows across the grass in suburban Seattle. All because he had dared to hold Owen's hand while they walked side by side laughing about their weekend plans. What happened next in the courtroom would force both men to confront everything they had been avoiding about their love, their families, and the world that still saw their affection as a threat. Eli's heart hammered against his ribs while the officer recited rights he barely heard. Owen stood a few feet away, hands already cuffed too, his dark eyes steady but jaw tight. "This is ridiculous," Owen muttered under his breath, loud enough for Eli to catch. The park had been quiet until the middle-aged woman on the bench pulled out her phone and started filming. Her voice sharp as she told the officer they were causing a scene. Eli wanted to laugh at the absurdity. Two guys in jeans and hoodies, one holding the other's hand for maybe 30 seconds. But the sound died in his throat. At 28, he had spent years perfecting the art of blending in. Now the entire park was staring. They were loaded into separate squad cars. Through the window, Eli watched Owen's profile disappear behind tinted glass. His mind raced back to the coffee shop on Capitol Hill 2 years earlier where it had all started. Eli had been hunched over his laptop, drafting briefs for a corporate client, when Owen slid into the seat across from him with 2 lattes. "You look like you need caffeine and a conversation that isn't about spreadsheets," Owen had said. Smile easy, voice warm. Eli had almost bolted. He still remembered the exact moment he decided not to, the way Owen's laugh cut through the noise and made the walls he'd built feel thinner. Now those walls were crashing down in real time. At the station, the processing felt endless. Fingerprints, photos, the bored sergeant who didn't even look up when he typed, disorderly conduct, public display. Eli sat on the metal bench in the holding cell, elbows on knees, staring at the floor. Owen was somewhere in the building, but they had been separated. The fear wasn't just about the charges. It was about the calls he would have to make. His parents in Texas still thought he was figuring things out. His boss at the law firm had made one too many jokes about family values. And now this. Hours later, a guard opened the cell door. "Bail's posted. Your guy's waiting." Owen stood in the lobby, hair messed up, shirt wrinkled. But the second their eyes met, the tension in Eli's chest eased a fraction. They didn't touch, not here, but the look they shared said everything. Outside the station, the night air felt cooler, freer. Owen pulled him into a quick, fierce hug the moment they cleared the doors. "We're getting out of this," he whispered against Eli's hair. Eli nodded, but inside he wondered how many more moments like the park they could afford before everything they had built cracked under the weight. The next morning, the local news ran a 30-second clip. Someone had uploaded the video. Eli's phone buzzed nonstop. Missed calls from his sister in Austin, texts from coworkers with question marks. He silenced it and stared at the ceiling of their small apartment, the one they had chosen because the light was good for Owen's sketching and the rent let Eli pay off student loans. Owen brought coffee to bed, sat on the edge of the mattress and said quietly, "Court's in 3 days. We fight it together." Eli reached for his hand, the same hand that had started it all, and held on tighter than he ever had in public. The courtroom date loomed like a storm cloud, but the days before it forced them to look backward and forward at the same time. Eli kept replaying their first real date 6 months after that coffee shop meeting. Owen had taken him hiking up Tiger Mountain, nothing fancy, just boots, water bottles, and a promise not to talk about work. Halfway up the trail, Owen had stopped, turned and said, "I like you, Eli, a lot. But I'm not going to hide if this gets serious." Eli had frozen on the narrow path, heart pounding louder than his footsteps. He had nodded, mumbled something about taking it slow, and they kept walking. That night they shared their first kiss on Owen's tiny balcony overlooking the city lights, soft, tentative, full of everything Eli had been too afraid to name. Now, sitting at their kitchen table the night before the hearing, Eli traced the grain of the wood while Owen cooked pasta. "My mom called again," Eli said finally. The words tasted like ash. Owen turned, wooden spoon in hand. "What did you tell her?" "That it was a misunderstanding. That we were just walking." Owen set the spoon down and crossed the room. You don't have to lie for me. Eli looked up, eyes burning. I'm not lying for you. I'm lying for the version of me they still think exists. The conversation stretched late into the night, voices low, hands brushing across the table like anchors. Owen talked about his own coming out at 19, the way his father had stopped speaking to him for 8 months. Eli listened and felt the weight of every unspoken year in his own life. The next morning they dressed carefully, button-downs, slacks, the kind of clothes that said responsible adults. In the car, Owen reached over and squeezed Eli's knee. Whatever happens, we walk out of there the same two guys who fell in love over bad coffee. Eli managed a small laugh. The courthouse steps were crowded with reporters. Someone shouted their names. Inside, the hallway smelled of lemon cleaner and nerves. They waited on a wooden bench, shoulders touching but not holding hands. Eli's mind raced through every possible outcome. Fines, community service, a record that could cost him his license. Owen sat calm, sketching absent-mindedly on the back of a receipt. 2 stick figures holding hands under a sun. When the bailiff called their case, Eli's stomach dropped. They stood, walked through the double doors, and stepped into the unknown. Judge Harlan Bennett was a man in his late 50s with steel-gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. He listened without expression as the prosecutor described the public disturbance. 2 adult men holding hands for less than a minute in a family-friendly park. The officer testified that several parents had complained. Eli sat rigid beside Owen, fingers laced together under the table where no one could see. When it was their turn, Owen spoke first, voice steady. Your Honor, we were simply walking. Nothing more. Eli added quietly, we weren't yelling. We weren't blocking anyone. We were just being. The judge leaned forward. He asked the officer pointed questions about similar complaints involving straight couples. He asked the prosecutor if any actual law had been broken beyond. Someone felt uncomfortable. The room grew quieter with every exchange. Then Judge Bennett delivered the ruling that would echo through their lives. This court finds no probable cause. The charges are dismissed with prejudice. Gentlemen, you are free to go, and free to hold hands anywhere in this jurisdiction without fear of arrest for simply existing. The gavel cracked once. Reporters surged forward. Eli felt the world tilt. Owen's hand found his openly this time, right there in front of everyone. Outside on the courthouse steps, the sun felt warmer. Cameras flashed. A reporter asked, "How does it feel to win?" Owen answered for both of them. "It feels like we should never have had to fight." Back at the apartment, they collapsed on the couch, adrenaline crashing. Eli laughed until tears came, then cried until Owen pulled him close. "We did it," Owen whispered. But Eli already knew the fight was only beginning. His phone lit up again, this time his mother's name. The media storm lasted 4 days. Local stations ran segments with titles like, "Park Handholding Case Dismissed." Eli's firm asked him to work from home until things calmed down. Owen's school principal called to say parents had questions. They tried to keep their routines, morning coffee, evening walks, now deliberately holding hands. But every stranger's glance felt loaded. Eli's sister flew in from Texas unannounced. She sat at their kitchen table and said, "Mom and Dad are hurt. They think you lied to them for years." Eli stared at his hands. "I was protecting them. And me." The conversation turned raw. His sister cried. Eli held her. Owen stayed in the bedroom, giving them space but listened through the door, heart aching for the man he loved. When she left, Eli turned to Owen and said, "I can't keep living half a life." That night they talked until sunrise about moving, about telling the rest of the family, about what real courage looked like. A week later, Owen's parents called from Denver. The conversation was short and cold. "We saw the news. We're praying for you both." The line went dead. Owen stood by the window for a long time. Eli wrapped his arms around him from behind and simply held on. No words were needed. The betrayal came from someone they trusted. Marcus, Eli's closest colleague and supposed friend, leaked an old photo from a company party where Eli and Owen had stood too close. The image went viral with the caption, "Law firm employee caught in scandal." Eli's boss called him in. "We're not firing you, but clients are asking questions. Take some time." Eli walked out numb. At home, he paced the living room while Owen watched, helpless. "I trusted him," Eli said, voice cracking. Owen pulled him onto the couch. "You still have me. And you still have you." The argument that followed was the worst they had ever had. Eli accused Owen of pushing him to be more open. Owen countered that Eli had been hiding long before they met. Words flew like shrapnel. Then silence. Owen slept on the couch. Eli lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if love was enough when the world kept chipping away at it. The next morning Owen made pancakes, their peace offering since the beginning. They ate in quiet, then talked for hours. Eli admitted the fear wasn't Owen. It was losing everything he had built to hide behind. Owen admitted he sometimes forgot how new this freedom still felt to Eli. They forgave each other the way only people who choose each other every day can. Months later, they drove to Texas for Thanksgiving. Eli's parents met them at the door, faces tight but arms open. The dinner table held more questions than turkey, but no one walked away. His father eventually said, "We don't understand everything, but you're our son." It wasn't perfect acceptance, but it was a beginning. On the flight home, Eli rested his head on Owen's shoulder the entire way. Back in Seattle, they stood on the same rooftop where they had shared so many quiet nights. The city sparkled below. Owen turned to Eli, took both his hands, and said, "I want to build a life where we never have to apologize for this." Eli smiled, the kind of smile that reached his eyes for the first time in months. "We already are." They embraced under the bright sky, the same hands that had started everything now steady and sure. True or false? Family approval is necessary for a gay man's complete happiness?